link that you shared.
So it's saying there used to be an awful lot of talk about lesbianism as a choice, more so than today. So the few small voices declaring that their lesbianism had nothing to do with choice was largely ignored. The notion of lesbianism as a choice was especially implied in the adage that any woman could be a lesbian in the political lesbian movement. So by the same token, it was thus implied that women who did sleep with men were also making a choice. Moreover, lesbian feminist ideology held that by choosing to sleep with men, women were demonstrating their essential lack of commitment to women. So it's like, it's more so, oh, well, you're not even in community, like not committed to women. And I don't know how that is on like the side of like gay men, if it's that they don't feel you're committed to like the community overall or whatever the case may be, but like it's like definitely a lack of like, you must not be a real feminist, you must not be as committed, you must not be like, you must be supporting men somehow because you're something to them.
I've definitely heard that from my Black lesbian friend, and I had to really like, it's not cool to say stuff like that. I would say from gay men, yeah, like it goes back to what I was saying about like this idea of what it is to be a bisexual man versus like, the varied realities that we have. The idea that they have of a bi man is a man who is masculine and is cheating on his girlfriend or wife. So they do think like, oh, this is just something that you do for recreation. You having sex with boys on your off time or when you're cheating or whatever. You don't take this relationship seriously. And I want to be real and say that, yeah, for some bi men, that is true.
They
And
hurt.
Pardon?
They're hurt. So no, they're definitely hurt. You see
They're
me
hurt.
often talking about the Kevin complex, the idea of like, that one guy, just that one guy. It doesn't have to be numerous guys. It doesn't have to be anyone, but it's that one guy that was very
Kevin
formative.
from Moonlight.
Yep, Kevin from Moonlight. That one guy who was very formative to like their expression or their queerness, and it went the way it always goes. Like it typically ends up that one direction. Is why I kind of make fun of Javon because he was that to someone. It's like literally this idea, or at least this is how it's been entertained to me, that this one guy came along and they thought that they had someone that they were going to be in a relationship to, and they thought that the DL stereotype would be ended right then and there, but then it ended up just the opposite. And so anyone that they have afterwards that has like a relationship or attraction to women is a potential danger. They're not really here for the same reasons. Either they're going to be a danger to them in a relationship aspect, or they're a danger overall. Is this idea that eventually they're going to get tired of playing gay or anything like that and go back to what they were.
Wow.
It's like, it's a Cinderella theory in the most part. It's, it's going to strike midnight and then the character's going to turn into a pumpkin again.
So wow, then that plays into this, narrative that bisexuality is not a legitimate identity and that it is fleeting as usual.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really disgusting.
It's exactly. Even
but can we? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying because even then, like, what happens if you do? Because I think a lot of people have that fear. I do think it's like a fear that some Black bisexual people have, that if you do end up in a traditional cishet relationship, what does that mean for your queerness? And what happens to it? And like, will you, shrink it, or will it get stronger, or will you need to perform it? Or there's a lot of concerns because there's that sense of community. It's not just like, you lose this fundamental idea of the mystery of who comes afterwards. It's like we place so much priority on our relationships or our romantic relationships and how they define us that some people just don't think that you can possibly sustain that when you're not when you're conforming or quote unquote conforming to the normative.
I get asked this specific question from people in relationships every time I do a Q&A on Instagram, not even just on my own Instagram, like across the board, like no matter if I'm doing like an IG takeover. And it's to the point where I no longer even want to like answer that question, because it's like it rides on the premise that in a relationship, you are defined entirely by that relationship. And it's, of course, it's like, that's just simply not my politics about relationships at all. But like, they're always like, how can I maintain my identity? And I'm like, it's not something you need to like maintain. Like you need to put in like X amount of hours at a club or do like X amount of activism for you to be empowered. Like I don't even
legitimate,
know
right?
Because I don't think there's any answer that I can give. I think they need to maybe talk to a therapist. But but again, because I get asked every day, like my go-to answer is always, connect with your community online, like follow more influencers, I guess, or participate in activism, like do whatever you can do that'll make you personally feel that way. But there are even people who do participate. Like, first of all, statistically, even straight women are only watching queer porn. Like no one is watching.
It just goes in.
That doesn't even dictate an identity. It's just superior.
It's such a. Wait, first, JR, you had something you wanted to say.
I don't remember. I always am like that. What were we talking about?
We were just, mostly just discussing like this idea of how being in a not same sex, but a traditional quote unquote cis het relationship, and how that kind of impacts people and makes them think that because you're entertaining this traditional platform or this traditional performance of your sexuality, that your queerness is now up for question. When in reality,
it's a large part of why I think that like biphobia in general is like not, because sometimes I'll say like something is biphobia, and particularly lesbians will say, no, that's just misogyny and patriarchy. Like, and yeah, like certainly that feeds into biphobia. But in the same way, like we're talking right now about the problems with toxic monogamy. We're talking about how like toxic monogamy makes it so that your relationships are literally such core fundamental things. Like people have like their husband's name in their Instagram bio, like such a core fundamental thing in their life that they think that it can change, it has the power to change their identity. Like who they fundamentally are outside of that relationship becomes co-opted by the fact that they're simply in a relationship. And I think biphobia is just like the general like marrying of all of these different phobias and isms, like just in one like little fun package that we get to deal with every single day.
No, exactly. Like even me, I'm often being looked at like by my family mostly because I don't lean towards having a relationship. I'm like, everyone asks like, what was your first heartbreak? Like, and very recently I did get my heart broken. Fuck him. But but like I said, my most significant heartbreak was like a friend. Like it wasn't like a relationship thing. It was literally a friend. It was the same level of trust being violated. It was the same level of like betrayal. All of that existed. It's like, but my monogamous relationship had very little to do with it. It was not romantic. I can't even pretend. I've tried to look at it from that point of view. Like, was I actually in love with this person? It was like, no, not at all. It was just it was a lot of love that was violated in a way not even that drastic, but for me felt drastic. And so it impacted me. And I'm like, when you consider that your relationships on any varying level, because any varying levels of intensity, I'm like, you understand that your romantic relationship actually might amount to about one day in your week. And if it amounts to more of a concern than that, then you need to maybe have a conversation about what's going on in a relationship and is there healthy boundaries. I do know some people who do think like it's a very weird thing. I think my sisters have it, so where they picture a relationship that if it's entirely peaceful, then it's not a relationship they want. And my sister has very actively said like, yeah, this idea that me being in a relationship where I'm not having a back and forth with someone in general, just not being challenged in any sort of way, that she just doesn't want it. And her idea of being challenged is this very core idea that she needs to raise her voice at someone at least twice a week. And I'm like, I recommended therapy, but she doesn't want it. She's perfectly quote unquote content with it. So we're just gonna let that ride for like another 5 years.
I literally want to be I want to be so bored. I want to be just at peace. Like I just want to be like, yeah, we're gonna eat the same restaurants and just never had, like, it is possible. I've been in so many strong, great relationships. I just don't understand why anyone want to, or it's like the idea that like you need passion, like it needs to be passionate, and passion is fighting. I don't know. Sure.
Sounds Freudian to me.
I remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, so I think I was talking about how, I was talking about the ways in which some bi men, or I was talking about the ways in which like a lot of gay men idealize bi men and what they idealize them to be, and thus how they idealize bi men interacting with their same-sex attraction or interacting with men in general. And I think that a lot of times that gets thrown onto bi men and made specifically like a bi men issue. And I don't always know that it is, or if it is a particular, obviously there's a particular experience that bi men have, some bi men have with seeing other men as only tools, to have sex with or whatever. But my point is that my point is that I do not think personally that that is specific to bi men, when I've met so many gay men who interact with me as though I am just somebody to have sex with and to fuck. And I know so many gay men who talk about how difficult it is to find another queer man who has emotional intelligence and who wants to do anything besides just have sex, or is good at anything besides just having sex. So I find it frustrating, and I hope that doesn't sound crazy, but I find it frustrating when that gets blamed all on bisexual men.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, oh yeah, bisexual, y'all the ones who only see relationships with other men as non-legitimate. Well, first of all, that's a societal thing, right? And we all live in a society, unfortunately. But
Joker.
but it's, for me, it comes off as weird when you attach that to just bi men, when you talk about all day long how difficult it is to find another man, whether he be gay, whether he be bi, who is ready to have a relationship that goes beyond just sex. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a person by person thing, or even more particular, that's a man thing, where like a lot of men do not see value in learning about emotional intelligence or learning how to be a supportive partner, or the list goes on. So I always get really frustrated when I hear gay men say shit like that.
Definitely agree. I'm like, what's the infamous quote? Like, the main peril of being a queer man is to both provide the male gaze and be a victim of it. Like that perpetuating cycle of like doing the thing you just criticize someone else for doing. I'm like, it's constantly always looking for the next best thing. And that's like the source of my most recent heartbreak was like, being the thing that someone just said that they wanted, but they're constantly trying to find someone that's better than you, rather than just looking at you. There's that self-perpetuating cycle, and it's not just bisexual men. Like this idea of definitely turning other men into tools of your self-satisfaction is there, and it constantly comes back around. It will happen at least 4 times a year. It don't stop. Like this idea, but it's not.
Sorry, it's so interesting that they blame it on bi people, and I agree that 100% they do that, because there's so much research. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the Singles in America study that's done annually by Tinder, but they literally talk about how like we are descending into this culture that has gamified dating because of dating apps. And like there's even like, I mean, if you go on like also academia.edu has a couple really good papers literally on the gamification of dating. So to then look at bi people and make us the like this just container for the issue that is so societal that there are studies on, that like you can literally go on like the Tinder website and read about and be like, this overall systemic issue is like this group is to blame. It's like just a way of like projecting their anxieties around bi people that already exist before.
I'm like, I even looked at it. Like I think I'm talking about this theory a lot, where I'm like, a lot of DL men aren't actually even really like, they queer lean, but I said some of them I wouldn't define as queer, especially after I worked at that bookstore and I sat there and I looked at it. It was like being like literally like a front row seat to watching it happen, of so many like men walking in, and a lot of them just did not or would not identify as queer, but the idea of the fetish of entertaining a same-sex attraction was what they were there for. They had no romantic meanings towards other men. They did not entertain it at all. It was just this idea that they can be wanted in a certain way by another man, or the idea that what they were doing was taboo or they shouldn't have been done. Because you're sitting there watching it and you're like, y'all don't have to be here. Y'all paying like $10 to walk through the front door. Y'all paying an extra 75% on these overpriced cheap ass condoms. Y'all are also buying another thing of lube to go back there with. These are 1 minute. This is a 1 moment burst. You guys don't bring nothing from home. Like, I'm like, you can break it down. I was breaking it down bit by bit. I'm like, each of you guys are doing this, and I had a conversation with a few of them. Like, I sat there and talked to them about it. And then they confessed, is like, it's not an identity thing. It's just a fun thing to do. Is that you had the money to do it.
During the Harlem Renaissance in particular, like what's the framing of white people coming to the hood to slumming? Is that right? Slumming?
Yeah.
Where they would like come to specifically queer environments, and to the degree that like that it became very mainstream to see like cross-dressers and to come to like queer spaces in Harlem and wear it as a costume. It was like a fun New York, like, oh, you know, those crazy people in New York, up in Harlem, like this, so specifically Black people, like it's like a redo, a remix of that, where people feel super entitled, and it's always along the same class lines. Like it's always like white people. It's primarily white people.
Yeah.
And like last year I did a PR trip to Jamaica, to the resort Hedonism. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Sounds like a fun place.
It is a like, it's called like a lifestyle inclusive resort, whatever. But a lot of it was like white people playing with like their fantasy of what people are supposed to be to them, like kind of wearing it as a costume, like, oh, whatever happens here stays here, so like we can just do whatever without any. And of course, like the commodification of Black people
space. Okay.
was like ridiculous. Like they literally they wanted to like all be cucks, so they'd go up to like random Black men. Imagine like just like, hey, like, would you please fuck my wife? Like what?
I've had
it was like very
to me. I'm just not into it.
Like,
actually, a lot of my friends, it's weird how many of my friends have been asked to do that. Just legitimately, some of them have been paid, which I'm like, I'm happy. You got something out of it.
I had literally like a friend who's like, she's not my friend anymore, but like an N-word slinging white person friend back in the day. And then later I'm like, but your boyfriend specifically wants you to go sleep with other Black men. Like, what does that say about like your relationship dynamic, that you guys are racist but also want, make it make sense, make it.
Yeah. What did I say earlier about the white men, you know, wanting to fuck with a big Black dick? Yep. Literally that.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of it, all these liminal things about bisexuality. This is why I'm like so big on like trying my best not to define it while defining my experiences with it, is like interesting, because it is reason why some of these things are attached to it. Some of these things have nothing to do with us, like at all. It's nothing to do with us. But we get the short end of the stick because we're blamed for it. I'm like, you look at the DL culture and everyone says about it. I'm like, the thing is though, you wanted this person and like you were attracted to this person's idea of trade and DL trade because they
talk about it
themselves as straight to you. So in us disclosing that we are not that, for some reason you're still attaching us to that, when in reality we have nothing to do with that. That's a whole different subgroup. Some of them will fall in line with us. Some of it is very much a closet scenario where they, but they are very open about it. Like I have a side account. The side account exists, and if I see something on my main account, I quote retweet it towards that account, and then that's for later. And on that account, I see everything, so I know how that atmosphere operates. There's a whole, like you said, the gamification of hookup culture and dating. There's a whole culture of that on virtually every single app, where it's operating exactly like that. It's operating of people within a very close niche network in a very close area perform like that, and it was also feeding the mill of the OnlyFans, and that entire network of turning hookup culture into a form of content creation, and like not even it being anywhere close or even close being identified as sex work. They don't identify that way, even if, you know, it is work pertaining to sex, but it's more of a content mill influencer culture, and that's it. And you watch it happen. Exactly. And then you get the ideas of, some of it is literally gay for pay. And that's all it will ever be for a lot of people on there. Some of it is legitimate exploration of sexuality and identity, and some of it is just every area in between. I won't get his name right because he talked about it. He's a straight. He identifies as a sex worker. He's straight. He's in Philly. I want to get his name right because he talked about the difficulties of bisexuality, but he specifically labeled it and gendered it, which was a bit odd to me. He made it seem like a binary issue of gender, where he was like, "It's more difficult." Dwayne McKell. Dwayne.
Oh, Dwayne McKell.
Yeah, he's in Philly and he's a sex worker, and he was talking about bisexuality, and he was like framing it as, "Oh, it's more difficult for men to be bisexual than women," which I disagree. I don't think it's a contest, and I don't play oppression.
Oh, Dwayne. Oh, yeah.
I was wondering. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's like on everyone's app if you're Black and queer. I was like, everyone. He's very open about like his main audience.
I'll check now. What is it?
Hold on.
He's been around for years. He's been around for like 10 years or something like that.
He's been on this since Tumblr was in its early days.
What's it at?
At official McKell. And he framed it like that. But the conversation around it was good. I didn't like his thesis, but his conversation around it was very good when he was like unwrapping, basically like his
like a video.
You know, he didn't make a video. It was just a thread. He just starts talking sometimes.
Anyway, I do have to leave soon. I just want to prepare you.
So I think we might have wrapped it up. I think the main thing I was just talking about was, you guys can hear me, right?
A little, yeah.
I'll just project my voice all the way out so it improves. But the main thing that he talks about in that thread was just this idea of his secondhand experiences with it, but him not being specifically identifying with it, but because he is, of course, a sex worker, he's pushed into those circles without him having to be a part of it. He's categorized and he's witnessing the harassment secondhand, and so he's looking at it from that perspective. And so he's like going, from what I can see about how you guys treat me, and I'm not even in that group, there is definitely a gendered thing going on where you guys are directing this level of hate that does not need to exist. So it was a really interesting thing to see, like how him being a sex worker and him being feminized in that way kind of by default removed a lot of the privileges that he, quote unquote, is entitled to, according to a lot of the theories that everyone's positioning, and him reacting to it. And this idea of what it would mean for, like, what would happen if I were to actually come out and say I identify as that, as a sex worker? Would that shift the entire dynamic of the support I'm seeing? Because he does receive a lot of support. He's like, I don't think he's making millions by any stretch of the imagination, but he's making lots and lots of money. He's very openly saying he said it's coming from gay men. He said, I'm not even hiding from the fact of that. He said, that's why I support like all my gay followers. No matter what I can do, I'll do it. He said they support him almost entirely. So within that niche, and like his money coming from the revenue that social media generates, I just want to think the last thing we want to talk about is, do you think, with how social media plays a role, do you think that online communities and identities and bisexuality is being reinforced by social media? And do you think that social media is the reason why we see such a booming community?
I just wrote my book about this, so I'll go first, and then I have to let you guys go right after.
All right.
But
also, I wrote send me the synopsis to your book so that you can literally, I'll use the synopsis to kind of hook your book in and get you those clicks.
It's available for pre-order on Target and Amazon. Okay, so what they found is that because for people, the internet allows people who would not normally find community to find it, even in terms of dating, like we used to, and friendship, we used to rely mostly on proximity, and that has shifted immensely because of the internet. But for a lot of people, it's almost become like an aspect of survival, like the need for internet spaces, because they're not getting the community that they need in their close like social circles, and the internet is like supplementing that in a way. Like statistically, like more queer youth are using the internet to find like diverse communities than any like other era, and like other, and like specifically marginalized communities are like the demographic that is like most likely to look for community online. So I think from like that specific perspective, yeah, we're seeing like so much more social support because of the internet. So of course there's like a lot more freedom to identify, because there's that realization of like, oh, it's not just me. And like it's helping for like it's helping people so that they're able to identify like the various mental health impacts of marginalization overall. So like I know a lot of people, like I wrote this article for Afropunk, and like, you know, Afropunk is like a particular demographic, and they were very much like, the media is just trying to make everybody this one way. And I think it's that
oh boy.
And right, so it's not that the media is making it a particular way, it's that people have more of a way to express themselves, to self-identify, and to like even play with identity markers online. Like they can kind of like, they call it like test run identity labels before they actually like run it in person in their like even closer knit social circles. And they can find like more information and more sense of connectedness on the internet. So I think it like I forget the quote, but the way that like society feeds into identity, but identity feeds into society, I think it just like works in tandem. And we have to go. It's 4:57. I'm about to be out.
Nice talking to you.
Nice. I can't wait till the piece comes out. Let me know. Hit me up. We can't hear you.
Nope. Nope. No.
What is going on?
Hear me now?
Yay! Yes. We're here.
It's like it's literally the program. So like I think what's happening is that it was shut down periodically, just the program, because
I feel like I've had that happen before. You have too many programs open.
It might be that. I'm not entirely sure.
To it. Bye.
Bye. Have a good day.
Later.
You too.
All right, I think I figured out what was going on. It's like swapping. Okay. For some reason, it was like swapping between the headphones, the computer speaker, and like something else. It was just like bouncing around.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, to answer the question, but right before I answer the question, so I looked up Dwayne McKell, and so this is the only tweet that's still up. So this is from September 30th. I don't know if you were talking about one from April, because I looked back, and so I saw that maybe he might have said something about bisexuality in April, but he deleted that tweet. So I don't see anything from his account about being bisexual besides this.
Oh no,
and
he
even
doesn't.
this,
He didn't come out. Where is it? I'm trying to find it. He might have deleted it.
He might have just deleted it. Can I read what I have here and see if that's the same thing? So it says, why when women think a man is gay, they approach them with the question like being gay is just one of the most horrible. Wait, no, this is not what I was talking about. No, this is not the one I was talking about. He wrote something about.
Yeah, he definitely deleted it. I found a post.
Oh, he deleted it?
Yeah, he was like, I don't know if you go on this topic again. Sorry for bringing light to anything I had no place on. My business. So yeah.
Oh, he deleted it?
Yeah.
Because the one I found is him saying that that bisexual men have it harder or something to that effect.
Oh no, that is it. So I'm guessing he kept it up and then like.
Oh
yeah.
Okay. So wait. It says, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think both genders are treated fair when it comes to being gay. Women don't have it as hard as men have it.
Oh men no, not that part about being gay. Okay. The one I saw was like literally only about bisexuality.
Oh, so I see.
He was like going on a long rant. It was like a long, like he was making replies back and forth. So it was a lot. I'm not sure what else he actually added to it. I just remember that aspect of it.
Okay. Well, I just want the record to show that men do not have it harder than women. Bisexual women have to face biphobia, and they also face misogyny, and they live under a patriarchal society. and our bisexuality is treated differently, whereas maybe with women, a lot of times their bisexuality is seen as like fun or is celebrated by society at large,
But
but
really,
it's
it's like
not taken.
fetishization. Yeah.
It's fetishization versus bisexual men's sexuality, which is oftentimes met with disgust and disregard. But a lot of times bisexual men have a very hard time dating women who take their sexuality seriously, and they have a very hard time dating men who takes their sexuality seriously. But anyway, okay, down to me. Why do
I'm
I
mad he
hate?
deleted it because he did have like,
Uh,
I'm one of the person who could say like you had a strong supporting point in this one thing, and
mm-hmm,
everything else I will throw away. He
mm-hmm.
had this really one thing, but I'm guessing he deleted that one,
I
uh,
see.
because like most of them were right. Like it's he doesn't identify that way, or he doesn't outwardly express identifying that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
And
it
like a
really
lot of
isn't
his
his
support is
space.
from straight women and from gay men versus
Yeah,
like a huge bisexual demographic, and he doesn't have
yeah,
all the language or the information. Is that kind of what you
definitely.
were gonna say?
Yeah, so he
Mm.
doesn't have that sort of nuance. It's just that what he's noticing from
Noticing, yeah.
people projecting onto him. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like, if you guys treat me this way and I haven't
Mm-hmm.
even said anything,
Mm-hmm.
then this is how I'm reflecting on what y'all are actually doing to these other people. And
Mm-hmm.
because he's also a sex worker, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
he does see like his, cohorts all about,
The
facing that.
industry,
Because yeah,
maybe.
in the
Mm-hmm.
industry, they're definitely facing that. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, even I think Men's Magazine actually interviewed what's his name? Huge bisexual porn star, adult entertainer. He literally had to come out and say like, I have been blacklisted by several companies over just for like because
Being
women
bi.
do not. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he said women don't want to do scenes with me because I have done gay scenes, and like you
Mm-hmm.
have to change your name when going to a different industry,
Yep.
and
Like
like
what's his name? What's that black dude?
I know exactly who you're talking about. I
Yeah, I
know.
forget. Yeah, and he has a whole different name. Yeah,
hmm
and he doesn't even do gay scenes anymore. And
He
he's
does
like,
it for his OnlyFans, but that's about it.
oh, okay.
I think very recently he was just like, I'm like, fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just says my OnlyFans is just for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you can go. And he talks about like, yeah, I had to like face like extreme biphobia because he
Yeah,
went literally say everything. Like it's not like he's like a no-name entertainer. He's like on
yeah,
the app, he's still on the top tens, like most
yeah.
popular viewed videos there. So it's like it's not hard for you to connect. Is that on any forum or any place you can look up my name, and right next to it is what my straight stage name is. And he said, and it's still like that. And there's still issues with it. But now everyone, I guess, is seeing that there is profit to be made off of it. And I was like,
Now,
yeah. So now they're
but
more
the
like,
stigma's
oh,
still there.
the
Mm-hmm.
stigma is still there in real life. But so now they know that the fetish exists. They'll
Mm-hmm.
pay for the scene.
But haven't done any of the work in
Mm-hmm.
between acceptance and like, yeah. But yeah, back to I guess social media and stuff like that. Yeah. So I know that a lot of people do feel more comfortable, um, finding communities online where they feel like they won't face the same level of stigma that they face in real life. And I know quite a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who have profiles and they don't include their government name or their face so that it can't be traced to who they are in off of social media. Because the reality is that when you come out as bisexual, oftentimes to people that means that you no longer have consent, and so that means you just like everybody. You'll fuck anything. You'll fuck anyone, and that oftentimes opens you up to sexual harassment from
Mm-hmm.
people of various genders and various sexualities. So yeah, I know a lot of people do run to the internet or social media and they feel like, oh, well, I can find people who are talking about bisexuality and sort of get my fill or my level of acceptance or affirmation from this place. Um, but at the same time, there are risks involved. And so one thing that was I always talk about like my regrets in my writing, and I
Mm-hmm.
do talk about how like you know in my early 20s, I would go to bisexual support groups and things like that, and that was great. But what would oftentimes happen is like people start friending you, and then they start tagging you in things that's related to bisexuality. So now back then it was Facebook, so everybody can see what you're tagged in, and it's like, oh, you're bisexual, and like, yeah, some people knew in my life, but like I wasn't at a place where I was interested or even ready to start having these conversations about bisexuality with people. But almost it's frustrating because oftentimes in LGBT circles, it's like, oh yeah, just come out. And it's like, girl, I'm not ready. Like, girl, it's not. And if you're Black, if you're
It's
poor,
not
like,
giving
this
what you
is
think it's
not
gonna give.
right. Like, what? Like, y'all live in this other world where, oh yeah, not that big of a deal, blah blah blah. Like, thankfully, or not thankfully, but like I've reiterated a billion times, I grew up feminine, so it was never the assumption that I was straight in the first place, but it was the assumption that I was gay. But so I feel like
that
the
assumption
people
and the
in my life,
actuality is two different things. It happens, it's way completely different. It's like the
right?
idea of like, I'm like,
But
I use that Glee example so many times because it hit on the mark in a way I did not think it meant to, with Naya Rivera's like whole thing with her grandmother. It was like her going, it being true and me knowing it's true and you saying it out loud are two different things. And it's like the damage of that. So it's like, you're most of the time it's like parents will position an idea that they know in some way, shape, or form that you are different. And they will, again, like we said earlier, they will treat you that way. But it's another thing altogether for them to confront it and its actuality and a possibility. It's like the idea of it's not said and therefore I can tell myself whatever. And like the whole Color Purple, don't tell no one but God. And so it does its own self-perpetuating thing where it's like they just don't say it out loud, and once you say it out loud, it can't be undone.
Well, the way I was coming at it was that, like, many communities, many LGBT communities can sort of force you out of the closet without realizing that you may lose your entire social and economic community or support in your real life when you're not in this support group setup when you go back home to your real life or with your other friends or whatever. And so, like, y'all have just outed me essentially, and like I wasn't ready to become this poster child of what it means to be a bisexual man, and I don't want to be that. I can't represent other people. I can talk about my experiences, but like I said, I talk about a lot of my regrets in my writing, and like I didn't really understand the full breadth of what I was doing. And though like I have though it has been affirming in certain regards, I kind of was at a place where, okay, like I'm dating and the person across from me just assumes that I'm gay. And if I want to tell them that I'm bisexual, as a way to get closer to them, or because I'm planning on keeping them in my life, then I will do that on my own terms.
Right.
But now when you like search my name or you search my image, bisexual comes up right away. And that was not my intention. I did not know that that was going to happen. I did not consent to that. No, I did not anticipate that. And it is not like I do not fuck, sorry. What I'm trying to say,
It's like a
I was
difference.
comfortable. I have a different experience now. People like guys that I'm dating, whether I like them or not, now they know that I'm bisexual and now they are wanting to talk about my bisexuality.
Right.
And I don't want to talk about my bisexuality, even though I've done a lot of writing on it, even though I've done videos and things like that.
It's not all you
I
are.
do. That's not all that I am, but also I do not want to have that conversation with a stranger. I do not want to have a conversation about my sexual history or my sexuality with a stranger. If I am dating someone, if we've gone out on multiple dates and I feel comfortable with someone, then I decide what I want to talk about when it comes to my sexuality. But what I'm finding is that on first dates and second dates, people are talking to me about my bisexuality. I don't want to talk to you about my bisexuality. You know what I'm saying? Did I tell you that personally? Exactly. Did I tell you that personally? Because did I want to have that conversation with you? Do I even know you yet? Do I even
That's what kept
know
my friendship my old friend. People telling my stuff that I did not like.
that I didn't want to talk about. We don't even vibe on that level. We talk about music. We talk about girls. We talk about this. Cool. I already know like your capacity, or maybe I'm assuming, but either way, whether I'm assuming your capacity or whether I know your capacity, I do not want to have that conversation with you. So I'm not going to talk about you.
This is the thing I label as I'm only talking about people I'm comfortable with. And you have to earn that. And if you have not earned that, that's either your own fault or my fault. Either way, it doesn't need to happen. That's how consent works.
Period.
Nothing else needs to be said about that.
Period.
But it's like it becomes entitlement after a certain point. And it's
does.
It definitely is when it becomes that idea of inviting in, because apparently with the Justice Smith coming out, which is also one of the things that inspired them to accept this pitch, was that apparently it wasn't really like a secret or anything. It wasn't hidden. Like you don't know that much about it, but like you also remember Justice Smith, like he's doing well, but he's not like in the spotlight period. He just goes and does his projects and then goes home, really.
Yeah.
But then it's like he's been a part of these organizations for like years, apparently. And it's just been a known thing. And then like that's what the invitation in is that I'm stepping into this advocacy role because I'm noticing these things going on around me. And this is now me consenting that you guys can't ask me about anything. He didn't even literally identify what sexuality.
He didn't say bi, he didn't say gay. He just, exactly.
He just said queer because he said, I give you guys an identity. You want to take that and go whatever with it. That would detrimentally harm my career because again, things not as sweet as we think it is.
It's not.
Every day is not the timeline. And so
that's and the sexual harassment that comes, bro.
Exactly.
The sexual harassment behind closed doors, all of that shit. In the industry, oh, you're this? Okay. So what's up? Come to my penthouse. Come to this. Oh, come to this party. No, I'm not coming to your party. I'm not coming to your party. I am here to work as an actor. I'm here to work. I am not coming to your party. I do not want to be your friend.
We're not friends. We just play friends.
Literally. No, I'm not coming. Because niggas do not know what consent is. And when I say niggas, I mean that gender neutrally.
But it's definitely in existence, and you have to be like the whole thing with the A.V. Wilson. Like some people think like, oh, you can come out and like just expect positive things. Avery Wilson did it, and then like he did that thing with me on the timeline, which was still weird. That's still weird what happened. Basically, I made a joke, like it was just a lighthearted, like, of course, bisexual people are, falling in love every 5 seconds because I'm real. I am. I fall in love weekly. It's a thing, and then I fall out of love within the next 12 hours of having a conversation with people because I'm a Capricorn.
Screaming.
But then like he took it and he took offense. And I was trying to figure out why. Like, he made a really weird, nice, nasty comment, and like it was a very weird predicament. And he thought, like, he figured, like, I can use like the trajectory of like people being supportive and just come out and also reap benefits from it, even though he wasn't internally ready for that. And so he did it expecting one thing, and then it didn't turn out that he lost his entire support network. It was like a lack of comfort in his own self with talking about these things. And it's a very clear and important thing that you have to be comfortable with in a way. Because like you said, like about your regrets, it's like once you ring that bell and you continue to ring it, like things happen.
What I was gonna say about Avery is I was going to ask if you two had like some sort of relationship, or whether this was like just like you just like tweeting at him, because I know there's this thing with internet culture where we just kind of sometimes feel like, oh, celebrities are never gonna see this, or like we sometimes can feel overly comfortable making jokes with people who we don't know or who have never heard us speak or know our sense of humor. And so I was wondering if like he doesn't know you, so he saw you kind of like joking about something, and just kind of, it's already a touchy subject, and so it was just kind of like, who is this? Like, why are you doing this? So
far, but I think I've clocked it. I've in his mention supporting him, I think no less than 50 times.
Mm-hmm.
But we do not have a personal relationship. The
Mm-hmm.
tweet in question, though, wasn't like a snide remark. I try my best to be as alert as possible about that because I'm
Mm-hmm.
very definite. It happens to me. A lot of people do get overtly familiar,
Mm-hmm.
and like some of the most vicious way possible. Some of them are trying to be playful. Some of them are clearly not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what was being positioned was a very common, like it wasn't an insult, but it was a very common joke. Um, I try to frame it like that because I can't communicate that context very well because it's
Mm-hmm.
just ordinary bisexual humor.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying, bisexual person is greedy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, ha ha ha, I get the
Right.
joke, ha
Right.
ha. But he took it as overtly literal to the point where a bunch of other people also saw it and was like, why is he mad about that? And I was like, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it did very much ring like afterwards when we squared it, how he kept up that nice, nasty personality. It was a lack of comfort. And then when Javon saw it and was like, oh no, he's definitely like, this is, he said, it's definitely him not comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
identity thing. It's like
Yeah.
what you said about like, early 20s, having to like trying to knock down every possible stereotype and go, I'm not that. I'm an individual. I'm not like you, every other so and so's. And it's like, okay, I apologized to him profusely, but and I still invited him on because I'm like, I don't want to get that connotation that we have a bad exchange and therefore you're not worthy of being included.
Mm-hmm.
But I would very much like it if you did say no. And he said no, and he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Stay well." And then I was like, "Haha, thanks." And then we left it at that. You're not
Did
ready.
you see, like, have you been watching like Taylor Bennett's like sort of I don't know if evolution is the right word, but like from when Taylor Bennett let us know that he was bi up until
Mm-hmm.
like kind of now. So excuse me. So yeah, I've been relatively like on it in terms of like watching interviews that he's done and podcasts and things. And so I think in the beginning it was some of what you mentioned with Avery,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh yeah, like maybe this will be a way that I differentiate myself from being Chance's little brother, and maybe also get some attention from this LGBT community, this huge
Into my
conglomerate that
music,
people
yeah.
think these people that they think, like, people think that I don't
You're a
know how they
secret
get this.
industry that runs the entire entertainment.
I don't know where they get this idea that, like, oh yeah, once you come out as gay or bi or whatever, that suddenly you're going to be met with billions of dollars and a following. I don't even
Because they see
understand
the
that, and I don't really want
headlines,
to. Right, I don't even
but
want
they
to
don't see
like
the comment
understand that.
section. Yeah.
T. But I think it was also some part of it was genuine, because he said that he did that also so that people would feel like, so that his fans would also feel that it was okay to be themselves. And he did talk about wanting to sort of challenge, some of these ideas that we have, like as Black men or as men in general, of like what we think we're supposed to be or do. And so I do think that there was some genuine stuff into it, and that shows up in like some of his interviews. Some of his early interviews were very, very rough, but the more you watch, you can tell he's doing the reading. You
Yeah.
can tell he's doing the reading. Even if he's not 100% comfortable with his bisexuality, you can tell he's doing the reading and he's doing the work.
Something about the thirst traps, I suppose, is giving a very queer, very
Oh, it's
clear.
giving queer. It's giving very queer. I'm weak.
That was a literal Freudian slip.
I'm weak. I'm weak.
It was giving very much that, and it was like I said, like when you end up in a cis-het relationship, it was
Mm-hmm.
like very much him. I think it's his way of affirming himself. Some people
Mm-hmm.
were like speculating, like, is he on the side?
On the side?
Uh, yeah, he's like on
What
the
that mean?
side. Is he out and about on these apps? And then,
Screaming,
and I'm like,
please.
probably. I mean, it's a
Oh,
rapper marriage. You never know.
oh.
But it's definitely like he is trying to affirm himself, like even to the point where he's distancing himself. Like when we mock his brother very openly for justifiable reasons, he kind of joins in now. I think it's very much
For
clear
real?
that he,
I'm screaming. He be dragging his brother.
Yeah, because it's like he said, listen, y'all be tagging me and these things when my brother said something stupid, and I was raised with him. So.
I'm weak. Please, I have to find that. I have to find that. I'm so weak. I had no idea.
But it's very interesting. I think everyone assumes it's following, and he probably could have read the following. He probably could have. I just don't like his music.
I hear you. What was I gonna say? So I've only heard. So he released another project. I think it was either early this year or late last. I think it was late last year or something like that. And that was like his second or third project or something. And out of all of his music, he's only ever said the word bisexual once, and it was only in passing. It was only in passing, and he's never ever talked about like being attracted to men. And so there was a time where I was kind of like trying to push his, or not push his music, but like there was a time that I just kind of was, constantly talking about him because he had just recently come out. And so a bi Black guy who follows me, we were talking back and forth, and he was asking like, oh, like, has he ever talked about it anymore in his music, blah, blah, blah. I was like, not in his music, but he has talked about it in interviews and blah, blah, blah. And so we kind of talked, and I was just basically saying that, to be honest, a lot of guys who are in fact attracted to men and women would have a lot more peace if they literally just acknowledged that they are attracted to men and women, whether they use a label or not, whatever, whether they talk about this publicly or not, whatever. But I'm literally talking about like people's day-to-day lives, of just them acknowledging it to themselves. People would have a lot more peace if they literally just said like, yeah, I am attracted to men. Yeah, I am attracted to women. So that's kind of like how our interaction ended. Like I was just saying, like, I appreciate him for, even filling just that space of just literally just being like, yeah, I'm attracted to men and women. My music is hip hop, and like mostly what I talk about is, various things. I'm only comfortable with talking about my attraction to women in my music right now. And that's kind of where I'm at.
That's an industry thing in itself. So
valid.
Yeah. I'm like, Lil Nas X.
What you mean?
Lil Nas X is like, his music, I will admit that I like a lot of his music.
Yeah.
But I think he's very open that they were like in industry talk. It's like they did not want him to formally even relate to himself. Like, I think he talked about it this year finally, when he admitted to being Nas Mirage.
And yeah, he talked about it this year.
And he was like, and then he was like being like Nicki Minaj finally acknowledged him, because everyone knew that he was that app, like that was him. Everyone knew, but it was like, it wasn't a thing. Like everyone assumed that he was trying to slight Nicki Minaj. I had to unfollow one person because they were going ham about it. But I was like, no, like there's a very literal danger to it. It's not a safe space for him.
It's not safe, and he wouldn't have a career if people knew he was gay from the start. He would have never had that success.
Old Town Road would not be played on any station. He would not got invited to the Country Music Awards.
Period.
It would not happen.
And I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, it was so frustrating for me when he was rising, because I would see so many gay Black men, like talking about him and shading him and all of that. And I know that has a lot to do with, their affinity and their love for Nicki, regardless of anything that she said or done. Which I won't even get into that. But it was so disheartening for me, because like, you should know. And like, I hope that don't sound fucked up, but bro, we don't live in a world where you can be like, why y'all, and like under his comments,
he came from, where he came from on the floor of his sister's house, about to be kicked out, to that, and only under like 2 weeks, basically. I'm like, he hit the jackpot, and you want him to risk it to affirm your love for Nicki Minaj, who probably won't do a song with him until he proves himself anyway.
Bro. And like, people would be in his comments. He could write "Good morning." People would be like, "Oh, good morning, Nas Mirage. Good morning, gay boy," or whatever they would say. And it's like, yo, y'all really trying to stop? Like, I don't know. I felt like they was trying to stop his bag. That's how I felt.
It was different. It's one thing to call him Nas Mirage. I did that. Because like, we all know it's not a thing he has to admit to, though. It's like, we all know he is, and we don't need any evidence to prove that he is. And the whole stakes is just to prove that he's a stan account, and we know why he's not doing it. Like I was like, personally, I would have been fine. He never acknowledged it ever. So I'm
It
like,
has
we
to do
know
with
it.
his sexuality. Like,
Exactly. So we
don't
know
out
it.
him. It felt like people was trying to out him, and it felt like Black gay men were trying to out him. That's how it felt to me.
A lot of them, those who are pushing for him, like to disclose that, yeah, say you're Nas Mirage out loud. I'm like, why? So y'all can also throw these industry things onto it? Because I'm like, the feature with Cardi B, that was necessary. That did a wonderful job in terms of the trajectory of his EP. It was positioned very well, and y'all inflated it already because y'all already knew he was Nas Mirage, and y'all was trying to prove that it's a betrayal of the Barb Hive, Barb Gang, whatever. I don't know what they all call Barbs. Yeah, Barbs. I'm old now. It was like all this stuff rolled into it, but I'm like, y'all know why he's doing it. I mean, we can't all write a Channel Orange. It's really hard to get a Channel Orange. Channel Orange is a difficult thing to write. We can't, like, Frank Ocean lucked out in a way that it changed the landscape. Yeah, he won't lose his career for it, but it will affect his ability to find as much of an astronomical rise as possible. Literally, his work, he had to, even in the work where he did disclose his queerness, which song was it on his EP? He did it, but he had to tell everyone, like, pay attention to these lyrics, okay? It's very clear what I'm saying here. And even that much is like a kind of low-key a betrayal of to his industry and to his label, because his label didn't want him to do that at all, because it is a danger associated with it. But by him doing that, it's like it was outing. They were trying to out him very clearly, and it didn't need to happen. So I'm like, if we know he's not doing a deliberate job in hiding it, but it's like that is a difference between us knowing and him saying it out loud. And the whole difference is who will accept him into another track. I'm like, he hasn't put out a song since, really, and that's concerning. I'm like, everyone, like, same thing with Normandy, and everyone making jokes about ha 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 when she's gonna do a song. I'm like, at this point, you guys should assume that it's not her. And so at a certain point, you gotta look at it like this. So everyone knows as an artist, if you're not in the studio, you don't eat. Their only job right now is to be in the studio. So we're not seeing anything. That's probably not up to them. So with this Lil Nas X stuff, I was just like, there's a difference between us knowing and we can make a joke about it. And I think Nazir was like, yeah, I very much realize it's the internet. I'm a troll myself. I was a troll for years. I know what's going to happen. Everyone is going to make a joke about it, and they're free and allowed to do it, because he's like, I didn't stop myself when I was doing it. I'm like, thank you for being equal in how you addressed it. He said, but it's a different thing to look at him and demand you have to do X, Y, and Z now because you are in the spotlight. You have to come out. But it's like, he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have to. So thank you for talking to me.
Thank you for having me here, Stephen. And I hope the piece turns out really well. Yeah, no, this was cool though. Thank you so much for thinking of me. And I hope you have a lovely day.
You as well. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Talk to
All
you
right.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.